Bonjour, bonjour à tous et bonjour à tous. Bienvenue sur ce webinaire Simplycure qu'on propose aujourd'hui en collaboration avec Life Extension. Donc, webinaire un petit peu particulier, c'est un webinaire où la présentation sera en anglais. Après, pas d'inquiétude, vous allez recevoir de toute façon le replay, la présentation pour pouvoir bien suivre toutes les informations qui vont nous être transmises aujourd'hui par Christoph Mayr, qui est directeur scientifique du laboratoire Life Extension. Donc, il devrait revenir d'un instant à l'autre. Rapidement, du coup, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas le fonctionnement de Livestorm, vous pouvez à tout moment interagir avec nous dans le chat. Donc, s'il y a des questions concernant l'utilisation de la plateforme Livestorm, s'il y a des problèmes au niveau de la vidéo ou au niveau du son, vous allez pouvoir mettre un message dans le chat. Donc, je vous envoie un message ici dans le chat. Hop, vous pouvez vous-même écrire. S'il y a des questions plutôt sur la présentation, vous allez pouvoir les mettre dans la rubrique questions qui est située en bas à droite et on prend 15 minutes à la fin pour répondre à toutes vos questions. Donc voilà pour les petites fonctionnalités principales et je vais pouvoir laisser la parole à Christophe. So thank you again, Christoph, for being here with us today. I'm going to pass it over to you and I'll be back at the end for the Q&A. Maybe you can start by presenting yourself a bit.
Thank you, Solène. Bonjour et bienvenue au webinaire d'aujourd'hui sur l'énergie. Comme en français rudimentaire, je vais passer à l'anglais maintenant. My name is Christoph Mayr. I'm German.
Christoph, I think you just went out of the webinar. There you go.
This was the second time I was just being thrown out of the webinar. I hope it will not happen again. So yes, I said I'm responsible for science at Life Extension Europe. I'm German, so I'm a biologist by education. I also hold a license as alternative practitioner in Germany. Life Extension Europe, that's the company I have been with for 10 years, is actually the distributor of two prestigious United States food supplement brands. And this is Life Extension, and this is Quicksilver. Life Extension is actually a pioneer in the field of nutrition. Life Extension stands for 40 years of innovation, for 40 years of discovery.
Christoph, are you sure that the Wi-Fi on your side is okay and
yes,
that you're not clicking on anything that's
I'm really sorry. No, the Wi-Fi is fine. So I have actually a cable connection. But I'm regularly being thrown out of the meeting, and then I have to rejoin. So I'm really sorry. I hope it stabilizes. So I would not know what to do.
Okay, I'm gonna check myself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Life Extension is rooted in science, stands for innovation. So Life Extension has introduced many popular nutrients to the US market, like CoQ10, melatonin, and many more. Besides innovation and discovery, Life Extension stands for quality, purity, potency, and for unique formulas. Life Extension uses a lot of branded ingredients, which also differentiates the brand from other brands because branded ingredients often have designs behind them. And it's a difference if the, let's say, botanical extract studied is used or it's just a generic extract. So Life Extension is the one brand, and so we have distributing this brand for more than 20 years in Europe. And Quicksilver Scientific is actually a newer brand. It's a newcomer, but not that new. It's in existence for more than 10 years. And it focuses on an advanced delivery system. And this is liposomal delivery, where nutrients are actually packed in liposomal vehicles. I will just show you in the next slide what that means. And besides that, Quicksilver focuses on restoration and maintenance of a healthy body. So that's really focus on modalities that can help improve the health of customers and patients. So this is also scientifically developed products and outstanding quality. Here, I'm sure you are familiar with the concept of liposomes. So liposomes is actually a delivery system for pharmaceuticals and nutrients, which has been developed in the pharmaceutical sector for more efficient delivery of pharmaceuticals, and it has been used in the nutraceutical industry for a decade maybe. So, and it's basically packaging nutrients, can be water soluble, can be fat soluble, into tiny droplets, which are called liposomes, or also nanoemulsions, depending on the composition, which then can be much faster and also better absorbed into the body. So these liposomes actually, they fuse, they are made up like our cell membranes, and they can fuse with the cell membranes of the body and release their load intracellularly. So that's also a difference. So liposomes are able to deliver fast and deliver into the cells. So in the second picture, you can see that's just a small intra-company comparison where different, I think, hemp extracts were compared. And the blue line is the liposomal version, the red line is the classic, and you see how fast it actually absorbs into the blood. But that doesn't mean that the classic nutrients or the classic forms or classic delivery that's used, for example, in the life extension is inferior. It's just different, because the more clinical research, more clinical data are available for the classic delivery. So the liposomes are just so new. There are, of course, data for the pharmaceuticals, but not so many data in the nutraceutical industry. So both ways are equally interesting, and it's I think depending on the preference, but at least it's a very late and advanced concept. So the topic of today is energy. I think everyone can use a little bit energy, or a little bit more energy actually. So energy is a topic that's probably relevant for everyone. It's probably relevant for the healthiest individuals who might want to have a little more energy for their maybe performance activities, sports, exercise, or whatever. It's certainly relevant for the average individuals who maybe are suffering from an energy deficit in the middle of a week after stressful activities, or just by the daily overload. And of course, it's relevant for actually disease or ill individuals who have chronic low energy state or chronic fatigue actually. And there are, of course, a lot of factors affecting the energy state, and that's only a fraction thereof. And it's, of course, the energy state is it's an interdependency of many bodily systems, like the cellular energy machinery, the hormonal system, and many more. And I would like to focus on the topics today that have a little more dark color. So that's the basic biochemistry. That's a cellular energy machinery. It's a little bit going into the hormones, but only the thyroid lane, not the others, which also, of course, have important functions in energy, like the adrenal hormones and nutrients, of course. And also stress, because stress puts a high demand on the energy machinery, so it consumes a lot of energy actually, and so less energy is actually available when there's a lot of stress. So then, of course, there are infections, sleep, many other actually. So the idea is to present the possibilities to intervene with by natural means with nutrients and similar compounds to give your clients, patients more energy. And actually the options or the interventions are the same basically, or can be tried in all groups, can be tried in the healthy individuals who want more energy, and can actually also be tried in the very ill, which suffer, for example, from chronic fatigue. And I just want to start with this. I might not have, but I just came across a very recent study, which I show in the next slide, and so I put that up. And actually, I would also not have looked into the first nutrient that I'm going to present, except for this study. So, but chronic fatigue syndrome, that's a debilitating illness, actually. So it's defined by the persistence of symptoms for greater 6 months. So culminating in the inability to participate in routine activities, actually. Oftentimes, these patients cannot work anymore, and they fall off the structures of the society just for their persistent and profound fatigue. They have post-exertional exhaustions, unrefreshing sleep, and others. And why this is so relevant? It's so relevant because COVID actually brought a similar picture in the survivors of the acute illness. And I mean, there are, of course, many sources of data, but there are indications that it's actually a larger percentage of the survivors of an acute illness who have persisting symptoms for more than 12 weeks. So that's called post-COVID fatigue. There are many definitions out there, like long COVID or post-acute COVID. But I think that the health system will be confronted with a lot of new sufferers from chronic fatigue and also other symptoms, of course, due to persisting illness after COVID. So that might be a new burden for the health system. And this is actually the study I came across very recently. So you can see it has been published late September. So it's very, very new. And I found it intriguing, actually, because this is that's a disease burden, actually. And there seems to be some possible intervention with a very, very simple and inexpensive nutrient, which is called creatine. This is a study which has been published quite okay in Food Science and Nutrition. That's quite okay ranking journal. Randomized, placebo-controlled. The N is small, but it is statistically valid, absolutely. So the intervention was 4 grams of creatine per day. And this induced a significant reduction in general fatigue after 3 months of intake and lessened the symptoms in post-COVID fatigue sufferers. So that's really, really interesting. Of course, it's one study, and there might be the requirement for more. But it's such an simple and inexpensive intervention that could be tried in any case, I would say. So creatine, what is it? So that's it's sort of an amino acid. It's an amino acid derivative that's actually more popular in sports and performance. So it's being used for muscle support, for exercise support, actually. So it's produced in the body. So it's an endogenous compound which is produced from amino acids. So it's highly concentrated in the skeletal muscles and also in the brain. And it is basically an energy store. So if you look at the picture here, you can see that creatine becomes phosphocreatine when it takes up ATP, so to speak. So we will talk a lot about ATP, which is the energy currency of the body. And so it stores the ATP when there is a resting state and a lot of ATP is available, and then gives it off in case of high demand, for example, in exercise. So it's an energy store, basically. And so from the performance realm, it is known that supplementation increases the ability to resynthesize ATP, results and can help with increase of muscle mass, strength, and can also diminish fatigue. So the typical dose is 3 to 5 grams per day. So that's for creatine. Yeah, and then, so this was just because I found this study. Otherwise, I would probably not have mentioned creatine because it has been more popular in the exercise realm. But now let's have a look at the classic nutrients, and prior to that, at one component of the energy, bioenergetics, which is a cellular energy generation, and this takes place in the mitochondria. I'm very sure you are familiar with the structures of mitochondria, which are tiny organelles in our cells, which have their own genetic material, for example, and are responsible for producing the energy currency, the energy fuel of the body, which is called ATP. And yeah, of course, energy-intensive organs need a lot of mitochondria, such as the heart, which has the most mitochondrial, the heart cells have the most mitochondria in the body, followed by the kidney cells, and also the brain has a lot of mitochondria. So the numbers of mitochondria, that's quite variable. So it's oftentimes a few thousand per cell, so 1 to 3,000 per cell, but it's highly variable. And then you probably have heard about some of mitochondria supporting nutrients like CoQ10 or PQQ. We will look at them individually. But first of all, let's go one step back and actually look at ATP, because that's really the fuel of the body. That's the energy currency. And so how is it composed? It's actually composed of a compound called ribose. That's a monosaccharide. And the other thing is called adenine. But what is noteworthy is that ribose, the carbohydrate, is needed to make ATP. And the ribose can be made by the body and is being made by the body. But it can be short in supply because the synthesis is dependent on many enzymes, but one enzyme which has also many other tasks in the body, these G6PDH. I will not go into the long names. And so this can be in short supply, and then also the supply of ribose can be short. And ribose is also it's not only necessary to make ADP, it's also a component of the genetic material of RNA, DNA, and also other things. So it's quite important actually. And supplemental ribose can bypass these enzymatic conversion and help replenish ATP. So ribose has been used. It has been on the market for decades. It has been used actually in patients and also in the performance realm. It has been used, for example, in chronic fatigue syndrome, also in heart conditions, and it's also often used to improve athletic performance and reduce symptoms of exercise and help restore energy after exercise. So typical dose is 5 to 15 grams, and it's really a nice thing actually to take. It has a very light and sweet taste, and can also be used to sweeten beverages, for example, even coffee. It's especially beneficial for supporting exercise, recovery, and heart health. Let's take an even deeper look actually. So what happens in the energy generating machinery? So that's here these bean-like structure. That's again the mitochondrium here. And of course, there are things happening prior to the mitochondrium, but in the end, the energy, the ATP, is generated in the mitochondrion. So in the membranes, actually. That's a process called oxidative phosphorylation, or it's the respiratory chain. And it's basically, it's complicated biochemical processes. but it's basically an electron transport. So it's basically so that the food that we eat is oxidized. So electrons are taken from the food that we eat, and they are really transported over manifold steps. And the final step then biochemically creates this ATP. And you can see other terms like NADH. We will come to that. So NADH is nicotine amide. Is a very central carrier of electrons. So that's actually the carrier, and the payload are the electrons. So that's a very central coenzyme within these energy generating processes. And but let's start with the most well-known probably nutrient, which is CoQ10. CoQ10 has been on the market for decades, and CoQ10 is actually made by the body, so it's an endogenous compound, and it's actually a part of this electron transport chain. So you can see it in the small picture at the bottom, where it transports electrons in this inner mitochondrial membrane, and so it's actually intimately involved in the ADP production. So it's absolutely needed. It's essential, and it's also a lipophilic antioxidant. So it has the ability to protect the membranes of the mitochondria, and also the membranes of the body. And it also protects mitochondrial DNA, which is very susceptible to damage by free radicals, for example, because the energy generation in the mitochondria also generates a lot of waste and a lot of free radicals, actually, which then can damage the delicate structures of the mitochondria. So the CoQ10 is actually also protecting the mitochondria themselves, protecting their membranes, and also is an element of the ADP production itself. So, I mean, it's just very important. So, I mean, there are a lot of data for CoQ10 in many conditions, actually. So, but today we focus on energy. And so there is data, preclinical data indicating it might delay senescence, or there is clinical data actually indicating it might be able to, or might contribute to retain vitality in the elderly. And this is also a lot of clinical data is for cardiovascular conditions. So it reduces cardiovascular mortality in heart failure. So heart failure, for example, let's say that's a process where that's a condition where the heart is unable to pump as it should. And it's, of course, a very severe conditions. And so high doses of CoQ10 have been repeatedly proven as very beneficial. So in such conditions like heart conditions, we would be talking about at least 200 milligram, rather more. And otherwise, a typical CoQ10 dose is 50 to 200 milligrams. So I would say a very typical dose might be 100 milligrams. Of course, it can be tested. There are, of course, many labs will offer this, and then they will also provide the average value, and then one can see where one is. Of course, there are also more general levels for CoQ10, how it should be and how it should be in cardiovascular conditions. But the average person will probably not want to be tested for CoQ10. It's just expensive, and it's completely safe. And more, I would say, is even better. So taking 100 milligrams of CoQ10 on average might be a very good idea. So I'm doing this myself since a long time. Yeah, and it's noteworthy that there are two forms of CoQ10. Of course, they are convert into each other in the body. So one is the traditional form, that's the oxidized form, that's called ubiquinol. And then there is the maybe the newer form, but it's not new anymore. So it's called ubiquinol. That's actually the reduced form, and that's better absorbed, and that's also more bioavailable. So that might be the preferred form. It might be a little bit more expensive, but it depends. And so I would probably use the already reduced form. And yeah, what causes low levels of CoQ10? Many conditions probably. But what is clear is that CoQ10 levels decline with age, and profoundly so, actually. So if you look at the graph, then you can see how much CoQ10 levels decline. And also noteworthy that statin drugs to lower cholesterol, they also deplete CoQ10 levels because they inhibit an enzyme which is required for the production of cholesterol, but the same enzyme is involved in the production of CoQ10. And so statins are really widespread. I don't need to tell you, many patients are on statins. So it's would be a good idea to actually add CoQ10 in these cases. So life extension always strives for the unique formula. So when life extension is formulating a product, they always try to do something extra. So not only offering, for example, CoQ10 or fish oil, but offering fish oil and CoQ10 with a certain extra, with a benefit. And in this case, for CoQ10, it's the additional compound is called shilajit. That's a nutrient-rich biomass found in the Himalayas, actually some sort of resinous organic material, which is needed only in small quantities, and it helps to stabilize CoQ10 in the active form. And so there are data, there are preclinical data indicating that it enhances the efficacy of CoQ10. So life extension offers the combination of CoQ10 with a little bit of the shilajit, and so this might be preferred over regular CoQ10. And then there are many areas where CoQ10 supplementation has shown beneficial effects, especially in cardiovascular and heart conditions, especially in heart failure, and also in longevity. Also here, a study on migraine who took a certain dose of CoQ10 and showed a clinical improvement. So CoQ10 is really universal because it's also so universal in the in its function. So the next one is NAD. So that is maybe something that is not so known. Maybe it's more known in a traditional food supplement form like NADH. Also, I think there is has been a supplement available for longer. But here we will be talking about a new form, a new molecule, which has been out only for a few years and is able to raise the NAD plus pool in the body profoundly. So and that's a very that might be a very important thing actually. So NAD is a coenzyme, and it's involved in many biochemical reactions, like over 400. It's made in the body from vitamin B3, and the levels decline with age, estimated 50% in the years between 40 and 60. And so this is, like CoQ10, absolutely essential in the energy generating processes, because NAD is actually the carrier of the electrons, and the electrons they drive the generation of ADP. So, and that's really actually the carrier. And it's also involved in many other functions. It's not only energy generation, it's also gene activation, also activation of the so-called longevity genes, the third family. It's involved in senescence, in immune functions, and many other other things, because it's just a coenzyme which then drives the enzymatic activity in many different areas. So the decline of NAD+ is causally linked to aging-associated diseases in preclinical models, in animal models. And also in animal models, the restoration of NAD+ levels slows down or reverses such diseases. And then I already said it, then there's a new molecule out there. It's called nicotinamide riboside. Nicotinamide riboside, I abbreviated to NR, which is has been shown to be able to raise the NAD+ levels efficiently in humans. So this NR has been developed by a company called Chromatex. It's under the brand name Niagen. So I would call it the new star in anti-aging, actually. It has been only out there for 2 years. And it's backed by more than 20 clinical studies meanwhile. So there's a lot of money in the development of this compound. And these clinical studies have been shown that NR is able to raise NAD in humans 40 to 50% after 8 weeks. And that's really a lot. I mean, that's really a lot. And so this seems to be, while there's a lot of clinical studies, there are not yet many clinical studies on disease outcomes, for example. So it's more that there's a lot of preclinical evidence that NR can slow down or reverse diseases of aging, many different actually, be it cardiovascular or neurological. And then there is a lot of clinical evidence for NR being able to raise the NAD levels in humans. So more clinical studies will come, but this might be already sufficient to include that in a anti-aging or energy regimen. So a typical dose is 300 milligrams per day. So there are, I mean, that is a dose that has been shown to raise the level 40 to 50%. Lower doses like 100 milligrams will be raising the level in a lesser extent, and it can be even taken in higher doses, which would raise the level even more. But typically, I would say it's 300 milligrams, and this is also the dose which has been used most often in clinical research. There is, of course, also clinical data for in disease conditions. For example, here, a small study with a high dose of NR for 30 days, resulting in improvements in Parkinson's disease. So yeah, this is again here the summary of the dosing study with 100, 300,000 milligrams, and how much these doses raise the NAD level actually in humans. Then a more classic nutrient, which has been used by many of you probably for many years. So that's carnitine and its derivatives. Carnitine is also an amino acid, or sort of an amino acid produced in the body. And carnitine is also intimately involved in the generation of energy, because so energy can come, you know that, from from several sources, like from sugar, from fat, and also from amino acids or from proteins, which can be degraded. And of course, the most important common is sugar, and then also fat. And so carnitine is needed to carry the fat, or the fatty acids, to be precise, into the mitochondria for burning them for fuel, actually. So it's called a carnitine shuttle. And carnitine has been used for decades. So there's, I mean, it's a more classic nutrient, and so I've not looked into or I've not provided here many study references, but there's a lot of reference for carnitine and what it can do. So it can definitely improve energy. And it has also different forms. So the most classic is the L-carnitine. It's a general mitochondrial support. Then the acetylcarnitine, which is slightly modified. And this more efficiently crosses the blood-brain barrier. And then there are other forms which are not so common. I would say the most interesting is the acetylcarnitine, because it will do the same basically as the carnitine, and will cross the blood-brain barrier even better. And acetylcarnitine has also been used very often in clinical research. So now I would like to show a few of the associated products just very briefly, so that you can see that we have all these compounds just mentioned. So, for example, here we have creatine capsules with pure creatine. We have pure ribose. CoQ10 with shilajit. It's called super ubiquinol with enhanced mitochondrial support. Then the NR, the nicotinamide riboside, it's called NAD+, cell formula or cell regenerator. And we have carnitine, we have acetylcarnitine. Yeah. So this was the first portion. But let's look at the very basic nutrients. I mean, what we have discussed now, these were more the endogenous compounds that are really also produced in the body, like the CoQ10 is produced in the body, creatine, ribose. But for actually energy, bioenergetics taking place, also exogenous nutrients are necessary, like all the basic vitamins. And let's not forget about all the vitamins, because as the other compounds just discussed, they are simply involved in all these reactions, and a lack of these compounds would also compromise energy creation. So I don't want to go into detail, but if you just take a look how often these B vitamins are mentioned here. So they are mentioned. So mentioned means they are involved in the biochemical reactions, degrading protein or converting sugars into energy, converting fats into energy. And everywhere here where these are listed, they are just needed. And so if there's a deficiency of B vitamins, so the energy generation cannot take place optimally. And there's also indication that the micronutrient intake in Europe is not always optimal. So there are different studies, and there is an indication that some of the nutrients are more often, there's more often a inadequate intake of some nutrients like vitamin C, vitamin D, folic acid. Folic acid is a B vitamin, and others. And since this is the case, and a multivitamin is we think it's the basis of a nutritional regimen. So no matter what other products are being used to optimize conditions of the patients, a multivitamin could really form a good base, because a good multivitamin will provide high doses, high potency of, for example, B vitamins, and covers the basics. Will provide vitamin D, will provide all the minerals, zinc, selenium, which are important on their own. And a good multivitamin or a good B complex will also use optimal forms of B vitamins, for example, for folic acid, not the classic folic acids, but the anti-methyl tetrahydrofolate, for example, also for B12, not the classic cyanocobalamin, more the methylcobalamin, and so forth. And yeah, what we have in our range is a multivitamin. It's called 2 per day. It's optimally dosed with a high potency vitamin B complex, all the minerals that are needed. It's actually, it comes at a good price for the potency that's in there. And also for people not, so when looking more at energy and for people not wanting to take a multivitamin, for example, there's also a high potency vitamin B complex separate. There's also a liposomal option actually from the Quicksilver brand where the vitamin B complex is packaged into these liposomes and comes with these fast and efficient absorption. This is a liquid format actually. All these Quicksilver liposomes are liquid format and they come in these pumps and these pumps can be sprayed directly into the mouth. That's quite a convenient form actually. Two more things. Two more nutrients I want to mention, which can boost energy, while not actually a part of the energy generating machinery. So as we have heard, so CoQ10, creatine, ribose, these are all part of the bodily machinery. But of course, there are many other compounds, like many botanicals, which can provide support, but they are not part of our body. And so I have them separately. So ginseng is very known, but it's not part of our bodily machinery, but it influences our bodily machinery. So ginseng has been known as a tonic, increasing vitality, doing many things. There's a lot of research on ginseng, actually. So it's also balances the stress response and supports energy production. Actually, ATP generation can be increased via mechanisms that are not fully understood, but it interacts with mitochondria and in several ways. So it really increases the ATP output. Has also effects on other areas of the body, like the neurotransmitters. And what has been more recently known that some of the benefits of ginseng are dependent on a transformation taking place in the GI tract. So where the microbiome or the bacteria residing in the gut actually transform the compounds in ginseng, the ginseng seeds, and transform them into the compound K, which is probably the main bioactive principle of ginseng. And so, of course, this depends on the microbiome. The benefit of the ginseng intake then depends a little bit of the microbiome. And so this was the reason to develop fermented ginseng, which has been fermented or has been brought in contact already with microbes, which then make the transformation to the compound K. And so this leads to ginseng or compound K or format where compound K is much more bioavailable. So fermented ginseng, you can see that in this study, leads to a much faster and much greater absorption of the active principle, or one of the active principles of ginseng, the compound K. And then this is a very, very interesting compound, actually. So it's actually French oak wood extract. Oak wood has been used in the preservation of food for centuries. So it's actually so the body has been in contact with these compounds. And so there was an extract developed which provides defined quantities of the active principle, which is called roborines. And these target the mitochondria and also other structures in the cell, which are called the ribosomes. So they lead to mitochondrial gene activation, actually, but also target the ribosomes. And this is the machinery actually in our cells producing the proteins. So that's the ribosomes produce the proteins from the blueprints from our blueprints in the genetic material, and so these are also important, or seem to be also important organelles in the energy equation. And there are actually a lot of studies on these extract, on these specific French oak wood extracts. It's called Retrouvez. It has been developed in France, I think, and so it has been often focused on chronic fatigue syndrome, and has been shown really exciting results in these conditions, which is really extremely hard to treat. So chronic fatigue is really it's really not well eligible to treatments, and the condition often persists for a long time without a lot of improvement. So and there are so it's really worthwhile looking up the science for this one, for this Retrouvez, because I think there are meanwhile more than 15 studies, all clinical studies. So very interesting, targeting the mitochondria, targeting the ribosomes, and leading to significant improvements for many symptoms in CFS, which is really not easy to achieve. And here the product is called Energy Renew. It has the same oak wood extract which was used in the clinical studies, and here is the product with fermented ginseng. I would see this more as an energy boost, but it's a stimulant-free energy boost. And looking at energy would not be complete without also looking briefly at the thyroid, because the thyroid and their hormones actually they are the basic pace keepers, or they set the pace for the energy. The energy generation from food. So with their hormones T4 and T3, so it's very central for the temperature of the body, and for the resting rate, and all these things which are intimately connected with energy. Nutrients important for thyroid health are different, so many actually. So vitamin A is important, which helps support normal TSH levels, tyrosine, iodine, which are the building blocks actually for the thyroid hormones T3 and T4. Vitamin B12, selenium is also very important. It also protects the thyroid gland. So a lot of nutrients are essential actually. The same way as vitamin B complex is essential for energy generation, tyrosine, iodine, they are essential for forming the thyroid hormones. Actually, here is some scheme showing what happens from tyrosine, which is converted then, or which is then made into thyroxine, the primary hormone of the thyroid, but not the active hormone actually. So that's the precursor, I would say. And then the most active hormone in the body is T3, and T4 can be converted to 3 in many organs like the liver and the brain. And then there is also this reverse T3. So that's basically unwanted, but it has, of course, it's not unwanted. It's unwanted if it's being made in larger proportions. So that's actually a normal reaction by the body. So it's a normal reaction to limit the conversion of T4 to T3 if no more T3 is needed. But it can also be dysregulated, and there is it's actually has an inhibiting effect. So too much of the reverse T3 is not desired. And there are, of course, different causes for an underactive thyroid, so nutritional deficiency, stress, gut health, and so forth. It can result in the thyroid gland not making enough thyroid hormone, in a decreased conversion in the tissues of T4 to T3, and also in an increase of the reverse T3, which has rather an inhibiting effect. And so a thyroid formulation was created with all that in mind, providing different nutrients which are important, like the tyrosine, the vitamin A, and also botanicals which can beneficially modulate these processes, like ashwagandha, which can support thyroid hormone production. Google can support the conversion of T3 into T4, and ginseng can actually inhibit or reduce the reverse T3, which is not wanted. Here is some evidence. Here's some evidence on ashwagandha. This group in this specific study for 8 weeks saw improvements in TSH and T4 levels. Google have shown animal studies, especially animal studies have shown that it enhances the conversion of T4 to T3, and ginseng modulates or decreases the levels of reverse T3, which was shown in this short study for 2 weeks, where the ginseng group increased significantly reduced reverse T3 levels. So, and this is called, all these package of nutrients and botanicals is called triple action thyroid. The last focus area, I hope I have enough time, so I think 9 more minutes. The last focus area is stress, because stress depletes energy. That's clear. So via many different biochemical and other mechanisms. So counteracting stress might be a beneficial principle, not only for conserving energy, but for many other purposes as well. And adaptogens are nutrients, botanical nutrients, most often, that have been used for thousands of years to help counteract the negative effects of stress. So that adaptogens, they help the body cope with stress better, so that it's less harmful for the body. And so common adaptogens are ashwagandha, holy basil, bacopa, cordyceps, and many more, actually. So what can they do? These 4, for example, ashwagandha modulates cortisol release, boosts brain function. Ashwagandha has a dual purpose or dual purpose areas. So one is stress, actually, the other is brain support. So ashwagandha is not only secondarily helps the brain, it also has some neuroprotective effects. But it's a main principle for stress relief. Bacopa as well modulates neurotransmitters to counter the effects of stress. Holy basil also helps balance cortisol, the primary stress hormone, and yeah, this is these four adaptogens have been combined in a synergistic formula, which is a more complex formula. And then there is also rhodiola. Rhodiola is a very simple principle. It's just one plant, one ingredient, and it's also powerfully helps to combat stress-related fatigue. It actually supports or helps increase ADP levels, improves physical endurance. So that's all clinical data here. Supports mental performance and balances the stress response. So there's quite some data on rhodiola. And rhodiola is a very inexpensive principle. It's just one inexpensive plant. So yeah, if the budget is a consideration, so this would be one of my primary choices. If the budget was a consideration, rhodiola or ashwagandha. So rhodiola is, I would say, more energy supporting, while ashwagandha is more stress relieving and neuroprotective. Yeah, rhodiola does several things, of course. Just here focusing on the heat shock proteins. So these are specific proteins that help the cells within the cells, help the cells cope with cellular stress. And so rhodiola works on this principle, which then in turn helps the cells intracellularly to cope better with stress. And then there is also a non-botanical principle. I mean, it's called the theanine. I mean, non-botanical. It comes from botanical. Actually, it has been discovered, I think, in green tea and amino acid found in tea. So, but it's not the botanical anymore. It's just an amino acid. So rhodiola, it's the complete botanical. The other as well. So and theanine is a stress modulator. So it works by various mechanisms, but one is to block one of the excitatory neurotransmitters, glutamate, from doing from overperforming and exciting the brain too much. Theanine produces a calming effect without drowsiness, so that's also very good to know. So it's calming, but it is not. It's without drowsiness and such similar side effects. So here a study in 18 subjects who received 200 milligrams of theanine, and this significantly improved attention performance, prone to high anxiety, for example. Also physiological parameters were measured. So it's a good calming principle without side effects. So theanine has been out on the market also for decades. I would say it's more known, but it has a very short half-life of only 1.2 hours, and so Life Extension recently introduced extended release technology so that the body can make use of the calming function principle for a little bit longer. So that means the theanine is being released over a longer time. And this is the product. So the simple, inexpensive rhodiola, then the combination of the four-mentioned adaptogens, ashwagandha, bacopa, and the others. And here the extended and immediate release theanine with 400 milligrams per capsule. And there are also liposomal options. Liposomal options like the One or Ultra Energy, so they are very related. So basically, Ultra Energy is a very comprehensive botanical blend of more than 10 adaptogens, which have been compiled by a master herbalist in the United States and actually only packaged by Quicksilver in the liposomes. So the blend itself has been proven so successful, so that it was just taken by Quicksilver and made more bioavailable. And this blend is actually, this botanical adaptogenic blend is also contained in the One. And the One combines the adaptogenic principle, which modulates stress and helps reduce the burden of stress also on energy, combines it with actually mitochondrial relevant nutrients such as CoQ10 and PQQ. So that's both. So that's the mitochondrial support plus the adaptogens. And then there's also a liposomal option available for theanine, and it combines the theanine with GABA. That's another neurotransmitter. That's one of the most important. Like glutamate is the major excitatory, so GABA is the major inhibitory neurotransmitter in the brain, and it can also be taken as a nutrient. So this is a very fast acting version of a stress modulator due to the liposomal principle. Yeah, and then 2 minutes prior to the end of the hour, I'm done, and I thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to receive your questions.
Thank you so much, Christoph, for the whole presentation. If you want to have a look at the question section, so it's on the bottom right. Wait. Do you hear me now? Can you hear me now? One sec. Able to hear me now?
But I can see the questions in the chat box.
Can you hear me? No.
While I still cannot hear you, I could just, if it's okay, just go over the questions which I can read.
Yeah, if you want to. Okay.
So I can see a question: when excess L-theanine, there is opposite effect, so fatigue. To my knowledge, this has not been observed. So there is no side effects like drowsiness. And of course, it would always be useful to stay within the recommended dosage, because there is clinical evidence behind. So I would not just take much more. So excessive theanine, I just would use the regular doses, and then no such side effects has not been observed. Do you associate rhodiola and ashwagandha, for example, rhodiola in the morning and ashwagandha before sleeping? Yeah, definitely. This can certainly be combined. So it's, you know it best as the therapist. It's always trying out, of course, what works best. And yes, actually, rhodiola in the morning sounds good, because this is, in my opinion, a more activating principle than ashwagandha, which might be a more calming principle. If at all calming, and yes, morning and evening, absolutely, why not? And you have also seen, for example, Life Extension or also Quicksilver, they combine a lot of adaptogens in one formulation. So in the Quicksilver, we have more than 10. In Life Extension, for example, these 4. Yeah, mushroom to improve ADP. There's a world of knowledge on mushrooms. So we do not have a lot of mushrooms in our assortment. So cordyceps is sort of a mushroom, and cordyceps is in our formula, actually. And there are, of course, there's a lot of science on the mushrooms, but so mushrooms are not in our portfolio. And so I cannot comment on this. Yeah, then there's a question on a specific mutation, if they should be systematically supplemented with T3. I think I leave it to you as a therapist. This is outside the nutritional realm, because T3 is not a nutrient. That's a prescription. Actually, it's a natural thyroid. Preparation, I cannot say. Complete B complex, only vitamin B or with calcium. In general, it makes the most sense to make sure that the nutrient, that there is a complete coverage of all the important nutrients. But calcium is normally not deficient in the diet. So if there's no, of course, we have a calcium supplement, and many people need calcium, especially for the bones. But in general, a lot of calcium can be taken from the diet. So a contraindication for Shilajit, I'm not aware. Yeah, in France, we usually recommend to evaluate the level of CoQ10 in blood before supplementation. Yeah, of course, that can be a very good idea, because the level would be, or the level to achieve might differ from condition to condition, and so it makes sense. It makes sense, but it adds, of course, to the costs of the evaluation. And since there is absolutely no downside in taking CoQ10, it just depends on the severity of the condition. So, for example, in heart failure, where there's really good clinical data on CoQ10 use, I would definitely evaluate the blood level and then titrate the level up with CoQ10. Yes, ribose for a person who suffers from heart disease, absolutely. But I mean, heart disease, it depends. If it's arterial disease, then there might also be other nutrients to recommend, which we have not discussed today. But ribose is especially for heart failure and also other heart conditions, and ribose can always be taken actually. So NAD plus, yeah, that's the coenzyme. So NAD plus, so it switches. So actually, that's a coenzyme involved in more than 400 reactions. Very essential. It's actually the electron carrier, one of the major electron carriers in the biochemical energy machinery. And plus means so it's electron devoid, and if it then it is able to carry to receive 2 electrons, and then it becomes NADH actually. Then a proton then attaches as well, and so it changes between these 2 states. But this is the coenzyme. A person who suffers from Parkinson can take creatine, definitely. The dose I would check actually, because it's very easy. So if you have a specific, I mean, you know this best as a therapist. If you have a specific condition, I would simply check the literature for the exact dosing in advance, because there is certainly literature on creatine in Parkinson's disease. I think so. This was the questions I could see.
Can you still not hear me? No?
I still cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Okay, I've tried. But thank you for the presentation.
Okay, so since I cannot hear so Len, and I cannot see any more questions, I would say again, thank you very much for your attention, and have a very good day.
Thank you.